Hey art friends, it's Miss TP. This is Miss TP Draw Stuff. Uh, and this video is another drawing small things from nature video. Haven't officially started that series, but it seems to be what's working right now, so I'm going to keep that going. And this is a little lavender plant that we're going to draw today. I just pulled it off of my big lavender plant in the backyard. Actually have this in a pot. I would love, love, love to plant a bunch of lavender out next to the wall in my front yard. There's a pretty old stone wall right there next to the sidewalk, and I would love to just fill that wall up with lavender plants. Maybe I will one day. For now, I just have a couple of lavender plants in some pots out back, and I love them. Every May they bloom, and I cut lavender and I hang up little sprigs of lavender to dry in my back rooms out of the sunlight. And then after a few weeks, I put them away in jars, and for the rest of the year, I can use them like to freshen up my drawers, or sometimes I give them away. Let's see, this kind of goes on an angle like that. Ooh, I noticed these little buds that become flowers, like that. It's like they're growing in little rows, and like here's one, and here's one, here's one, and then after that they get really close together until there's a few right up here at the top. I think what's going to take the longest time on this drawing is all these little buds, because there's so many. And if I want my drawing to look right, then I really do have to draw each one of them. And I know they're probably harder for you to see. Like, I'm noticing on my screen that these purples are showing up as a very dark value. I'm sure it's my light or perhaps my resolution or something. So you maybe can't see each little bud the way that I can. For that reason, I'm unlikely to shade this. I will probably leave it as a line drawing so that you know, the buds don't get lost in the shading. I thought I would start by trying to capture some of these really close together ones. Kind of get that out of the way. I may not have sketched enough rows there. I think if I can get like this, I see a center line where they're just, it's like they're all lined up, going down the little flower, lined up to bloom, perhaps. If I can get that little line drawn, it'll be a good guide for the rest of the drawing. I use the word noticed a lot. I say that a lot. And I think it's a habit I've developed in teaching because it's such an important part of being a teacher. Not a teacher, an artist. Well, being a teacher too, but being an artist is about observation, largely. Being able to notice things in your own drawing, in the thing you're trying to draw, in the materials. You're always observing, and the observation helps you find problems so that you can solve them. That sounds so negative, problem finder versus a problem solver. I actually heard a fantastic lecture about that a few years ago, and how a study was conducted. I won't go into all the details, but the conclusion to the study was that artists who started again on their work, who rearranged the still life many times, crumpled up their paper, started again, ended up in the long run being more successful than artists who just kind of drew what was in front of them and didn't try to change anything. Now, I don't know how legitimate that study was. I don't know. But it was a nice thing to think about, that there is such a thing as a problem finder in art, in any creative job. And it doesn't mean you're looking for the bad. It means that you're observing so closely what you're doing and thinking about it so critically that you are able to see problems that are going to emerge anyway, and you can work to solve those problems proactively. Problem finder. Self-reflection is such an important part of being an artist. Being able to look at what you're doing and see what's working, so you can continue to do it, and see what's not working so you can make changes. I'm always trying to teach my students about self-reflection, and that's why I use that language. I noticed. And it's also a way to say what you really mean. You know, like in critique, when you're critiquing students' work, when students are critiquing each other's work, and you don't understand something they've done, you don't necessarily want to say, I don't understand what you've done. Artists don't like that. That makes them feel bad. And that's not the point of critique. It's not to make somebody feel bad. It's to improve the work. So I've found it's better to say what I'm really thinking, which is, I noticed this thing in your artwork. Followed up by, can you tell me more about it? And it's really language that promotes problem solving rather than just pointing out problems. So each of these little buds, it's so interesting. It's several petals, and it's like they're twisted together and closed up. And it's very hard to see the little lines that would distinguish them from each other, so I'm not going to draw them. That's my rule. If you can't see it, don't draw it. When you're drawing realistically. That wouldn't be true for things where you have to use your imagination. But then when they open up, you can kind of see it, which is fun. All right, I've kind of lost my place. I think I know. Boom, boom, boom. Yes, all right. So this is where there's like a little flower coming out of there. Ooh, this is such a tiny, delicate little mass of petals and buds. I love lavender. I think I said in another video, it's my favorite plant in the mint family. And I've learned that I love mint. I love most of the plants in the mint family. If I had a spirit animal, it would be lavender plants. Oh, I think I'm gonna add one of the little buds right there. It's not there, but I'm gonna add it because I wanted a little balance right there. Okay, there's one right over here with another flower coming out. When you're drawing something super tiny like this, it's sometimes better not to draw all the details because your surface can become overworked. Your tiny space there can become overworked, and all of these lines make it look busy and crowded instead of what you were actually wanting to do, which is represent it accurately. Sometimes it's better to leave a little bit to your audience's imagination. That its imagination is very powerful, and it is okay to trust your audience and their brains. All right, love it. Let's do the other side. See, that's the flower. Yep, let's see what I've got going on here. There's another one. There's actually some space here where They're not growing as closely together as they did up here and more out. And that one's going down. I did that one earlier. Great. There's my lavender. Now I think what's going to really make this look like lavender, since I'm not going to be shading or coloring it, are the leaves of the plant. They have these distinctive sort of spindly, spiny leaves that are not like mint leaves, actually, even though they're in the mint family. But they do resemble rosemary leaves. I need to sharpen my pencil. I had a professor in college who would say that all the time. He would come over after he'd been drawing for a while, and he'd say, "Oh, my dear, sharpen your pencil. It's all dull," and he would use the word horrible. He was probably my favorite drawing professor. I loved the way he could look at what you were drawing and tell you immediately what was wrong and what to do to fix it. And I also love how loose and confident he was with his drawing. He would just take your pencil and he would make this very rough, like crude sketch on your paper. And when you first go to art school out of high school, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but I've noticed it with some students that they get there and they've been used to practicing with precision. Like they draw with precision and they're artists, so everything has to be perfect. And then you get to art school and none of the professors do that. When they draw, they're so loose and free with their drawings because they've been doing it so long. They draw, they know what they mean, and usually it's not what they're sketching for you is not the finished product. It's like the first layer, and you don't know that yet because you're still new. And it's like, what? That looks crazy. Why does he draw that way? And he would draw really crudely on my paper. It's like very simple sketch, and it would be right. It would be correct, more correct than my drawing. We were usually doing still life, or I actually had him for figure drawing as well, life drawing. That's where you draw real people. They're models in the studio. But his drawing would be accurate. It might be really rough, really loose, kind of messy, but it was accurate. He put things in the right place. And just that quick sketch on my paper taught me so much. That there's a way, to be loose and accurate. And when you learn it because you practice. You don't just start doing it. You don't just think, okay, I'm gonna draw loose now, and then you do it. You practice and practice and practice and draw and draw and draw, and then you develop that visual language of your own, and you can draw with confidence that way. And that's all it was, that confident muscle memory of drawing that he had. It was great. It was great for me to see it. There's a tiny little bud right there. Let's see, there's also this one kind of behind the stem. Another little bud over here. And one behind and below this leaf. This would have been a great drawing to practice that line weight if I wish I had, in some of these, made the bottom of the bud darker and the top lighter. That's a way to shade where I don't have to actually shade. You show shadow with a darker line in some places. I've probably talked about that before. Let's bring that down to this next little section of flowers. I didn't pick the lavender this fall, the ones that are blooming right now. I'm just kind of letting them go. Is that too far down? I think it is. I think we're more here. Of course, I'm also not worried about accuracy that much. you have a little freedom when you're drawing things from nature because they are all different, just like people. They all grow with these slight differences. So if you're not quite accurate, it's okay. Nature is not perfect. When I try to draw a coffee mug, however, there is no room for differences. It is perfectly cylindrical, and I better get the ovals the same. I better get the parallel lines the same. Well, that might be a reason I like nature so much, because there is that room for the imperfect. And that's personally something I love about life. That sounds so deep. I'm not trying to be deep. I think life is beautiful because it has these imperfections that make us realize what really is good and right. And it makes it easier to forgive the imperfections of others. I think that's why pain is so important. You know, the things that we suffer, loss and conflict and things. If it weren't for those things, we wouldn't learn how to be understanding of each other. And we would have no idea what real rightness was. And art is sometimes a way to communicate those things, to experience empathy for people who have different experiences from us. So perhaps in my art, I like to represent the imperfections of nature because it reminds us of the imperfections of people who are part of nature. I hope that doesn't sound pretentious. I certainly don't mean to be. But like I said, all art communicates something. And as the artist, you have an obligation, I think, to be in control of what you're communicating. So hopefully that communicates on some level in my work. It doesn't have to be a super obvious message. It can be subtle, it can be ambiguous, but it's still my message because it's my art. It's not like, whatever, I just drew this because I did, and now you have to make it mean something to you. I don't think that's the job of my art. My art is to be my visual voice to the world, and hopefully I'm contributing something and communicating clearly some message of beauty or significance. That's another thing I believe, that small things are significant. Like the way that lavender smells. I find that deeply significant. Even though it's a very small thing. That's kind of it for this drawing, isn't it? If I'm not shading, that's pretty much the whole drawing. I think it would be good because I'm noticing quite a strong shadow to one side of this stem. So I think this is a good opportunity to kind of bold those lines to create that dimension. I could even do that to some of the little buds would benefit from like a stronger line in places. Just to try to communicate some of that value without shading everything. If I shade it, I feel like it is going to go kind of flat because these spaces are so small. I don't want to lose a lot of my lines. I often do leave my drawings just as lines because I really love line. Okay, I like it. I like it just like that. I love lavender. I wish I could smell the drawing forever because this won't last that long. Alright, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, art friends!